to the Unleash Success podcast, where we break down the secrets of success to give you real tools and strategies that get real results. And now, here's your host, Corey Corpodian.
Welcome back to Unleash Success. This is your host, Corey Corpodian. And have you guys subscribed to the newsletter yet? If you haven't, be sure to go to unleashsuccess.com for weekly updates, tips, and strategies to further unleash success in you. Today, we have an exciting guest who is really one of the truest entrepreneurs and hustlers I know, Mr. Steven Silva. He is the founder of several companies, including Generation BBOY, known worldwide for its top quality breakdancing products and annual B-Boy Colorado events, as well as the founder of Top Rock Realty Investments, which has flipped over 25 homes in the last 14 months, also managing 50 units with over $7.5 million in property in the last year alone. Today, I'm super excited to go over how he got started in real estate, grown his company, as well as maintaining some side hustles in the process, including renting cars on Turo. This episode is packed with tools and strategies to help you create more streams of revenue and boost your entrepreneurial journey. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Steven.
Thanks for having me.
So, man, this is an incredible story. Just want to go back to where it all started for you in your entrepreneurial journey.
So I actually think I have a little different story than most people. And it catches people off guard, but here's how I tell it. So like most young guys, I was a freshman in high school, and what does every guy want? He's interested in the girls. And I, of course, was, but I was definitely a nerd, through and through. You know, I enjoy video games and all that sort of thing, and space and whatnot. And, so I just, girls didn't make sense to me. And one summer, I remember this between freshman and sophomore year. I don't even know how it happened, but there was a friend of mine, and we were kind of acquaintances, and I somehow just didn't even think about how to do it. Just came out like I was hanging with her one day, and I said, "Hey, do you want to go out with me?" And she said, "Yes." And it just caught me off guard. And the whole time we were dating, I'm like, how does this even happen? Like someone like me dating like a girl that I thought was not even a 10. She's like a 12. And how did this even happen? So when she broke up with me, I wasn't even like mad. I was just like, that was the coolest thing ever. I just never thought that would happen to me in my life. And so I was on cloud nine, and I was just like, how did that happen? And so I went on, at the time, it was like Ask Jeeves or Yahoo. There was no Google yet. And so I just searched, I forget what it was, but it was something along the lines of how do I pick up girls, or how to date hot girls. And it led me, lucky enough for me, to a forum that was with a lot of mature guys. And it wasn't about just hooking up with as many girls as you can. It was about like becoming a better person. It was like a personal development site for guys to like make themselves more attractive, better bait, so to speak. And so genuinely being better people in business and life. And that's where it came from, was actually like talking to these guys. It was like, you have to be authentic. You can't like pretend you're wealthy. You can't pretend you're a good guy. You can't pretend you're attractive. You have to actually be all these things. And that's the way you get the best girls. And I was like, well, I still don't get how I got that girl at the time, because I didn't think I was any of those things. But maybe she was just being nice. But awesome nonetheless. And I think my friends were in the same boat with me. They were like, how did that even happen? And so I just, through these websites and stuff, I was just studying. And of course, while I'm learning like how to just talk to girls and have normal friendships and relationships, it was, a lot of the content was on like, work for yourself and read all these books. And that led me into Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar and all these audios, and getting cassette player, which I still have today, my cassette player right here that I bought.
Oh man, that's awesome.
So, and I still have all my old audio books on memory and what is this one? Power Negotiating, Relationship Strategies. One of my favorite, Earl Nightingale, Lead the Field. And so I listened to those over and over again because I was still young, didn't have a lot of money. So I buy these cassette series off eBay and just listen to them nonstop, going to bed or whenever. on mostly audiobooks because I didn't like reading at the time. And that's changed. I've read a lot, Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all these things, but it just came from wanting to love, it never came from wanting the money. It was like, how do I create that cool relationship again with like a dream girl? Just every part of that process in dating and attracting the right girl pushed me past a lot of psychological barriers that are in line with business and entrepreneurship as well, like facing the fear of failure. I had so many failures, I just got used to it, going up and talking to girls, which most people were like, that's weird. You're not actually going to go talk to her, are you, in a grocery store or settings where most guys would consider it extremely bold or like weird. And I'm like, well, I was already weird. I always thought I was weird. I was different, nerdy, like I said. So to me, it was whatever. I was okay with that. It was a learning process. You learn. I looked at failure as a learning experience. That's a great way to look at it, man. Through trying to, meet the perfect girl, I learned about how to do business. And after that, business was easy. Wow. Yeah. When you face rejection almost every day, it was easy. And obviously I went to a lot of seminars, that I highly recommend people do. It's taboo it's so silly that, I talk about personal development with all my friends and I think they're used to it. And, whether the guys go or do not go, but I'm like, you should totally go to site seminars or whatever it is, or Tony Robbins or Landmark Forum or any number of things out there, or just the weekend seminar. There was one with Dr. DeMartini recently here in Colorado. And it was just like, just go. You're always going to learn something no matter what state of mind you're in. It's always going to be amazing. And I can't stand that personal development. It still seems taboo to me, to a lot of friends. And I'm like, that's how I got to where I'm at. And I don't think anyone should be ashamed of it or anything like that. And I know I used to be like that. Like it was still weird. But again, I always felt I was weird. So it didn't make a difference to me. Like, let's just own it.
I think that's one of the big things that we connect on too, is just that constant searching for personal growth and the willingness to actually put yourself out there. I don't think it's weird. I think that a lot of times the hard part about personal development is facing yourself in the mirror, and not everybody wants to do that. And they don't want to have this deep conversation. They don't want to go deep within themselves and try and figure it out because it's scary. People always talk about not being able to accomplish their goals, but really it's that they don't want to put themselves out there because of what other people might think of them, or failing, or being weird. And, sometimes you just got to do it. You got to take action. That's such a cool way to jump into entrepreneurship, though. I love it.
Yeah, it was completely unintentional. I mean, I had friends and family that were entrepreneurs, and so I kind of it was like, cool, I kind of want to work for myself, but that was never the focus. And it's only been over decades that I've transitioned into the last 2 decades, almost 2 decades now, that it's moved into like, I love business for business and the challenge, because now I have a wife. So it was like, which was actually the biggest relief of all. Like I didn't realize how much time I was putting into dating, and the second I got married, I have so much free time and less stress. I was like, now I can focus on business, and it's paid off. It definitely shows.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't know from the outside looking in, just seeing how successful you've been and how many businesses you kind of started over the years. But definitely your success has exploded in the last couple of years, especially with your real estate investments. So going back to, one of your first businesses and how you got started, or I know actually your first business wasn't in real estate, but how did you get started in your first business and eventually lead you into real estate?
I remember applying for a job. And that's one thing that's different about me as well, is I started so young, freshman year of high school. Even a little in 8th grade, I was kind of thinking about like the whole girl thing. But so I started reading books really young. And so 13, 14, I remember my brother applied for a job here at a place. It was like a family fun center, games and arcades and stuff. And I just happened to apply with them. 14. It was like the youngest cutoff for them hiring people. And they didn't call me back. And I was like, for some reason, I'm just so mad. I'm like, because I felt like already at that point, I'd read so much, I felt more mature that I was like, they should hire me. That's ridiculous. It was the worst mistake they ever made. And so that was the first job I ever applied to. And then fast forward a few years later, the second job I applied to was like a salaried 60-some thousand a year dream job for most people. And I was still unhappy at it. And I think it was just so many years of working for myself that was just, I never had that route that most people have, which is working for someone else and then realizing like, there's got to be a better way. It was like the whole time I was like, I'd rather be broke and working for myself than successful or making a lot of money working for someone else's dream.
What did you do for your first business? What was it the t-shirt making company or was it Generation BBOY?
Yes. So the first one was the t-shirt making company, and it just kind of fell in my lap. A buddy of mine and I were talking, and he knew a guy doing it, and we went and hung out at his shop a little and bought all the equipment, and we're printing shirts for a few years. A lot of more failures than successes, but it's like the perfect time to learn younger, and be able to have those failures and not have them. I was living at home with my parents, so
how old were you then?
Plenty of time to 14, 15.
When you were making the shirts?
16. Yeah.
Oh man. So we've known each other for quite a few years now, huh?
Yeah, a long time. And I've gotten out of that, and I hire other people to do any of the clothing at the Generation BBOY company. So basically screen printing transitioned into a few other things I forgot about. I tried everything. I was trying a lot of MLMs and maybe did 6 or 7 different MLMs until I finally realized like, they're selling the dream of entrepreneurship, but it's still their dream. You're still working for them. I had no control over the products they were selling, or if I had an issue with a product, I couldn't go back to this MLM and be like, hey, they didn't really like this laundry detergent. Can you offer them a refund? What can we do? Or can I improve the product? I had zero control over the products were sold. I had to sell what they told me to sell. And so it was just a salesman job. And I don't know why it took me 5 times to realize that. And 2 of them were scams. I just paid them money and then they took it online and there was nothing to it. But I just didn't stop. So just constantly trying new businesses, new ideas. And from the MLMs, I realized, okay, if I'm going to do something, I have to do it. I'm the one that has to create it. It has to come from, inside me or some compilation of ideas and my own experiences. And I want to do something I love. And so I was breaking this whole time. And it was extremely unprofessional in the breaking scene back in 07, 08. And the internet still was kind of young then. And I was one of the first to start an online breaking website, let alone store. But I was one of the first stores out there, probably the second store in the breaking specific community for just gear and clothing and stuff. And so just the timing was perfect. And sometimes you just get lucky. And I think I was trying so many different things. That was just one of my things that stuck. If you throw enough darts, one of them's bound to hit a bullseye. And so that was that. It moved into Generation BBOY, and that we're one of the number one, if not the number one, breaking specific gear and retail brand in the world. And so it's just fantastic.
That's incredible, man. And I know you're really passionate about breakdancing, and but that's not even really your core business. That's just one of your side businesses that you built up over the years. You still kind of, engage in it, but it's not something that you do at day-to-day task, is it?
No, I've hired out most of the work. It's a side hustle. And it was for the longest time. It was like, I want that to be it. But I realized that as I learn more about business, that market it's going to take a long time to grow. The culture in general, and I could go into that for a long time, but the culture itself came from the ghetto in New York, where it came out of nothing. Something was created, which is beautiful in the art. It is hip hop, but it's a hard place when you bring money or sports or breaking leagues. I run a breaking league for the whole Midwest, and it's hard to bring that into something that's like, you have kids that they don't want it. They feel like any sort of wealth or sponsorship sometimes creates spoils it, like the purity of it.
Yeah.
And that's very important to the community. And I just have to balance that, and it's fine. But it's kind of like the glass ceiling in that culture. It kind of creates its own glass ceiling. And so every business has its thing, and every business has a perfect puzzle piece in the way for it to work. And that one I felt was like, I love it, so I'm going to keep it on the side, but it's not going to make me a millionaire. It can't. It was there for me to learn and to give back.
And you still make money off of it, though. I mean, it's not like you don't. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it still makes money, but it's like I don't want to live the minimum wage, even if I'm working for myself. I'm like, I hit that goal, I can work for myself. If I have to, that'll support me the bare minimum. But I want something bigger. And so I transitioned to real estate as soon as I could.
Interesting. I think about this just a correlation. I know that there's some power moves in breakdancing, and I know you're pretty good at some of them. And it's like you saw the glass ceiling and you power moved into real estate, which is like this huge ceiling. I mean, it's almost, you can make as much money as you want in it. Real quick, what's one of your favorite moves in breakdancing?
Of the ones I'm still working on, air flares, which is kind of like the pinnacle. It's incredibly hard for even Olympic athletes are still having trouble pulling it off. It's something that I'm like 99% of the way there. I've been on and off because last year I injured my shoulder pretty bad.
Oh,
been going through rehab, and I'm almost good now. But it's not so much a move; it's the movement in general. Mm-hmm. I like the dance. I like the flow of it, the movement of it, dancing to music. The whole idea of dance is human in a way, like just pure.
And despite running these companies, you still break dance every week, right?
Yeah, almost every day.
Almost every day.
Yeah, if not thinking about it.
That's awesome.
Breaking makes business easy. And this kind of shout out to breaking in general and the guys that break it is so difficult. I'm competing against guys that's all they have. They don't have maybe privilege or the insight or the knowledge, or they just grew up in a culture that is not of abundance, that I've learned to kind of appreciate and accept and focus on abundance and being resourceful. A lot of guys are get into breaking because it doesn't need anything. You don't need even shoes or clothes or anything. You can have just a floor and some music and compete at an international level if you train hard enough. And so you can't buy your way into being good at breaking. It's just pure brute working hard every day. And so you have kids that's all they have. They're 100%. That's their focus. That's their life is breaking. And I'm still trying to compete against kids that's all they have. And so it really pushes me, and it makes business easy. It makes, when you're competing against someone that's everything 100% for a whole community of people, thousands of guys, there's some amazing talent and art in that culture. And you can't buy it. You can't get that anywhere. And it keeps me humble too, seeing a lot of guys who genuinely that's what they have. And they might be working the minimum job, and then they go train 6 hours a day after the job. And so I try and bring knowledge to them and financial knowledge, but then, trying to compete against them in ways that I think is possible, like training smarter rather than just harder. And I work with, some of my goals are health goals right now, getting back into breaking. So
sure.
But it makes business easy. And so I think everyone should have some sort of art or way to express themselves and not just get stuck in trying to make money.
Absolutely, man. I'm right there with you. I mean, what drove me for a lot of years was money. I'm not going to, say it wasn't, because it was. But, when you start making it, you realize that that's not everything. And I was left wondering why. And, my art, my passion revolves around, sharing messages like yours, doing this podcast, motivational speaking, and sharing my own message, and teaching people. I've always tried to kind of unleash success in myself and learn the best ways possible to do that. And when I do it, if I do it for myself and make myself successful, that's only helps me. And so I've always found that my favorite thing was to teach people and watch them learn how to do it for themselves as well. And that's really my passion. So we all have like a different art, but when I do that, it does make life a lot easier and more fun. So real quick too, I'm curious, we're talking about hustling. What exactly does hustle mean to you?
hustle. It's interesting to me because I hear it a lot in the hip hop community. And I think it comes down to like focus. It's another word for just focus. Like you have to put all your effort and resources into one thing, and you can't get distracted or focus on too many things. One thing I've learned actually from being in that culture is a lot of guys think hustle means just hard work. And so they think that if I just keep doing this one thing over and over again, it's going to eventually pay off, and so they're basically, in the simplest way of explaining that, is, they're trading time for dollars. Mm-hmm. And they're hustling because they're working hard and they don't enjoy it. And I am constantly reminding them, like, you can't work your way to wealth. You can't work hard and work your way into creating wealth. Like hours is what I mean. Just hard work. You have to think your way to create wealth and think your way into new ways of abundance and new businesses or whatever it is. And so that's one thing I teach. But so that's kind of like where I hear hustle a lot is from that community. Like, oh, you got to hustle. You got to work hard. You got to put in more hours. You got to get another job. I'm like, no. You got to, focus more on creating an idea, bringing value to people in mass, and not just, don't think small. Don't just think trading hours for money. It's like a whole consciousness shift for some people.
Totally. And it's like, I think for me, when I first realized that, I know you read it as well, was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And understanding that, I grew up in a middle-class family, and it's like, make more money, buy a bigger house, buy nicer cars. But those aren't wealth creating assets. Those are liabilities. Debatable on the, your own home, but for the most part, if it's not paying you, it's not an asset. And so you're not making any money off of it. When I read that book, I was 28 years old though. I was way older, and I wish I had read it when I was 18 because maybe I would have thought differently. And my parents were in real estate. They were flipping homes in 2006 in Las Vegas and making a killing, but it just wasn't something that transcended into my education or learning from them. And unfortunately, with the real estate crash, they ended up losing everything too. And so I was always questioning, like, how can we create, wealth? Which, leads me into, how'd you get into the real estate investment, and how have you built Top Rock Realty?
So I heard a quote one time, or I read it in a book. I forgotten where it came from, but it was that it changed my perspective of wealthy people in general. The first part of it is like, and I don't even know if it's correct, but it's what I read. It was 80, something like 90% of people, maybe 95%. It was a significant number of millionaires are self-made in their lifetime, which told me it's not inherited or given to them, or they won the lottery. It was like self-made. They created it. And then the second part of it was, of those people that are self-made in their lifetime, the millionaires, the vast majority of them, I think the number was 80%, made it in real estate. And so real estate was always a focus, and reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and a lot of other books. I read some real estate investing books and stuff. So I was always focused on making the leap into real estate as soon as I could. And that was difficult to buy a house at 18. Working out was when I was 17. And one thing that I found work was I did work with my parents, and they lent me the money on the first one, but it was like a year and a half in the making. And what finally pushed them over was, I'm like, they're not going to listen to me. They just think I'm their little boy, crazy kid, as talented as I was or whatever I was doing. They didn't have the mindset of entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. And so I found a friend of theirs that they knew was very successful in real estate. And I got him to come to the house and talk to him about some numbers and projects I was presenting to them and saying, hey, let's invest in this. This is a great deal. And just the words coming out of his mouth, this is a really good deal. They were like, okay. And that kind of flipped the switch. And that's how I got the first deal.
That's really resourceful too, man. Yeah. Just to be able to find a way, even an indirect way, to get them to convince you to lend you the money then.
Yeah. And there's so many other ways now that I'm older. I'm like, there's so many ways I could have done it. if you have a good deal like that, there's money out there, and the deal always comes first. Right. And if you have a good deal, people will want to throw money at you, and that's a psychological shift that people have to make. For sure.
And so that was your first investment. How much did you end up making off of it?
So I bought it in 2008. I ended up turning into a rental. Okay. I just sold that last year, and I think I made $180,000.
Holy cow. And it was cash flowing positive the entire time? It was
cash flow positive the whole time, maybe like $700-800 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and what was funny is that was the first deal I did, and it was a while until I did the second deal. So I was living off that that cash flow for some time, especially college. It helped a lot.
Yeah. So that's incredible. You actually bought that and you were in college, and that's just, I mean, I wish I had somebody just giving me $700 a month.
Yeah.
Definitely. In college, $700 went a lot further than it does now, but for sure. So what was your next deal that you ended up doing? I know you bought a duplex or fourplex.
So that came a little later. I did a house, something in real estate every other year or so, because I was still young. The second one, I did a flip. It was awesome. Long story short, I think we made like $70,000 on that. It was downtown Denver.
Wow.
Had I kept that, it'd be worth like $800,000 now. I'd be balling off just that one house. But, moving along, I did another flip, a townhome with a cousin. So then I brought a cousin. He was entrepreneurial as well. And I put up some of the money, and he helped me do the whole flip and everything. And so we flipped that. And then the money I got from that is when I bought my 4-unit apartment here in Denver. And I was looking for properties that basically, how do I avoid losing money? And at the time, I couldn't describe it. Now I can describe it. I define it in 3 rules because I've heard other guys say the same thing. And I just kind of stumbled upon it naturally. Like, I look for a deal that it has to cash flow. It has to be in an area I know, and there has to be some sort of value add play. So even if the value add play for whatever reason doesn't work, it at least still cash flows as I bought it. And so doing those things, I've always seemed to make money. And a lot of people want to buy like a all fixed up property ready to go. And this property was definitely not that. It was in the ghetto. This is an area in Aurora they closed off streets because of the number of, cop chases, police chases. They wanted to block off some of the roads. And keep drug dealers from happening and stuff. It was one of the roughest neighborhoods in Aurora. I hear from my parents back in the 90s and early 2000s. Well, I bought the property, fixed it up. I added a 5th unit in a storage area in the basement. And so now it's a 5-unit property. And that one property is cash flowing probably $3,000 a month. And I think I have $400,000 in equity in it.
Holy cow.
And so that's been fantastic. And then
how old were you when you bought that one?
25.
Wow.
No. So that's 2013. So I'm 31 now.
Incredible, man. So you were doing all these projects, but it wasn't your full-time job. I know you said you were working for a different company. Walk us through that process where I know that company, I think they got bought out or shut down.
Right.
And how you ended up going full-time into real estate.
So that's when I just got married, and all I had was that one apartment at the time for the rental, and that single family house still. And my wife actually found me the job. Someone came into her work and was flirting with her, and she was like, "Oh, my husband does real estate too," because he was trying to say he does. Yeah, it's so funny how that happens a lot to her. But and she's like, "You should talk to him. He does real estate." And somehow I got the job, and it was actually really cool. And it made me set my sights higher. I'm not completely against working a job. There's a time and place for it. And this thing provided so much opportunity. It made me set my sights so much higher. Like, I was like, I shouldn't be doing one house a year. I was at the company hedge fund purchasing acquisitions for them, finding the deals for them locally. And we were buying like 50 homes a month for a solid 2 years.
Wow.
In just the Denver area. And so I was underwriting every one of them. And my knowledge of just real estate and the pricing and different pockets in the area just went through the roof. And so the second that company was bought out and they laid us off. I had the severance. And so I'm like, let's go. Like, why am I trying to do one deal a year? Let's try and do like one a week, one a day, with the right systems in place. You can scale as far as you want. So to me, it was just a matter of scaling. And then that's when we teamed up with my other buddies that over the years, they had seen my success in the real estate, also breakdancers. And we all were like, why are we working all separately? Let's all team up. You're way better at talking with people and negotiating with tenants than I am. You do that. I'm just going to buy houses. And then you're great at working with contractors. You've done project management. Why am I'm terrible at that. You do that. And so we complemented each other's skills so perfectly. We teamed up, started Top Rock. It blew up. Like we were each maybe doing one deal a year. And after that, just that first month, we bought like 4 homes. And It just went up from there. And pooling our resources, that was huge. Finding a good team.
All right. So how do you evaluate whether you should, I know we talked about the 3 rules that you have for cash flow, but you're buying so many homes. Do you guys have just a system in place? What do you do to invest in these homes? I have so many questions, I guess. Like, if I'm starting out in real estate and I want to go buy a home, how do I get involved? How do I get started?
If someone asks me that kind of question, I tell them they need to learn more. So I'll tell them I'll give a shout out to Bigger Pockets. They're a podcast focused on real estate. I'd tell them go read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'd go tell them to read, Think and Grow Rich, because I'd stay on talk to them. And a lot of times people that ask some of the basic questions, they don't even have their mind right with money. Mm-hmm. They still believe things like money's the root of all evil, or rich people had to shoot someone in the back to get there. Like their relationship with money is bad. I'm like, if you think money is bad, why do you think your mind is going to attract money and opportunities and allow your mind to see opportunities and act on them? Your mind thinks it's going to get hurt because that's how you describe wealth and money. So I focus on that relationship with money first. And then I say, go start learning about real estate at the same time. And then come back to me. And then I could probably make you really rich because it's almost easy. It's almost too easy when you have the right mindset. I see so much opportunity out there. I just don't have enough time. I see business ideas everywhere. I see another buddy of mine start an online. He pulled off the Instagram celebrity business model and is making thousands of dollars a month just posting videos. And he's hilarious, so it works for him too. But it's like you can really do anything. And I think back to Top Rock, I knew what my strengths and talents were, and that's a process of self-discovery as well. Each of us has a certain set of innate skills that we're more suited for certain tasks. I'm great with spreadsheets and math, the nerdy stuff. I like looking at numbers. I like looking at houses. I don't like dealing with the people side of real estate, and that's what Jake's perfect at. And that's why I was able to buy 20-something homes in the last year, because I have Jake to do all the talking and negotiating. I just find a home and say, this is good. Here's the numbers. Here's everything. And I give it to the next guy. And Jake runs with it.
Surrounding yourself with the right team is super important to complement your guys' strengths.
Exactly.
That's important. Huge. So, all right. So I get my mindset right about money. I read some real estate. And now, I've saved up some money. I've got like $10,000 or $20,000 saved up, and I want to invest. How do I do it? What do I do?
Well, first of all, 10, 20 grand. It's not a lot for Colorado. Colorado's super expensive.
And I'm in California. Whoops.
No, it still comes to building the team. So we have a network of wholesalers, real estate agents, and I'm looking at maybe as much as 50 deals a day.
Wow.
As little as none if I don't want to work that day. But, and I try to just make a goal, send in like 5 or 6 offers a day on different homes. And we're locking up about 1 in 30 to 1 in 60 or so. It's somewhere in there. Let's say 1 in 40 offers. We're locking up a good deal here. And
that's a lot of offers.
Building that team, getting those people to bring you the deals, go to networking events. There's so many networking events now. It's very tough time to get started, but not impossible. And I would definitely say don't avoid getting started just because it's hard, or don't avoid getting started just because a lot of people are doing it. There's so many people and so many networking events out there that and I put myself through that before. I don't necessarily enjoy going and talking to strangers and meeting them, but I did that because I knew that was such an important part, building a team. And so,
and you've always said
networking
this.
Events.
You've always said this too to me. It's funny, like, as we started investing with each other, but how you have all these other friends who, like, yeah, like, let's invest together. I want to help you guys out, but they're kind of skeptical about it, or they're not willing to take that risk.
Yeah.
What do you tell someone who's unsure about investing in real estate, or feels scared that everybody else is doing it? I mean, you're sending in 60 or 50 offers a day. How am I supposed to, the little guy over here, supposed to jump into real estate? What do you tell someone like that?
So I'm actually going through that right now with one of my best friends. He bought his first rental last year, but he's still like the third and fourth step. There's always pressure. And I've gotten used to it. And but you just have to keep pushing. I know that's the easy answer, but it really, there's no way around action. You can't, action is the best learning tool, and failure is the best way to learn and get better. And if they're really having trouble, I would tell them to find a mentor or partner with someone to mitigate that risk. Partner with someone that knows a lot more than you do, and that makes things a lot easier. And I did partner on a lot of different deals over the years, so that helped, like partnering with my cousin. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Super cool, man. So amongst building, a multi-million-dollar real estate company and partnering with all these guys and doing all these flips, it's not like you stop side hustling. I mean, I remember visiting you and you were talking about renting your car through Turo, and I'm sitting here, man, you're just making money left and right any way you can. How do you balance all these side hustles, and how do you keep finding new ones?
Anytime I find, I'll answer the first question, which is with the Turo is interesting. So this is a very specific example. It's an actual thing anyone can jump out there and do. Is it's kind of the Uber of rental cars. So you're renting out your personal property, and it's a car on through their app, and they have people come in and book a car for whatever their trip is, and you deliver it to the airport or wherever they want to pick it up. And then, they have your car for 3 or 4 days. And so there's a lot of trust built into that, but people have been working on the sharing economy and in it for a long time now, and it's becoming more common, and it's a way for people to earn money for themselves. I do it because I want multiple streams of income. If real estate crashes, I need other streams of income. So I'm always trying to work on businesses in different industries, clothing and all sorts of things. And because it's easy to make a lot of money doing something as simple as that. So I had 3 cars renting at one time, and each car was making about $1,000 a month. So it was the returns were actually better than real estate. I was like, I was almost bought just 20 cars just to rent them on there.
Oh my gosh.
But I realized that there's a lot of legal stuff still going on. So I just want to manage my risk, and I didn't want that to be my job. I enjoy real estate.
Right.
And so I'm doing it because I enjoy it. And I'm like, Turo was becoming a job. If I had too many cars, it would become less of a side hustle and a job to manage that kind of volume. And I didn't want to do that. And I've actually seen some guys that have hired out management, but then it cut the profit out. The percentage is so low. The managers took such a big cut.
Right.
The return was better in real estate again. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to stick to that 1 to 3 car range in there and go from there. And so Turo was amazing. And that's just one of, if I see something else. So we started a staging company because I had so many flips, and I knew the value of staging a house, and my wife was really great at decorating. So I just had her, I was like, you want to kind of work for us? And so we started a staging company. We stage all our own flips and some other people's flips as well. We actually just do our own flips now. Again, that was becoming kind of a job. It was really fun and exciting when we started it, but it was like, I didn't want to be doing other people's work and working on their house. I didn't want to become a job again. I wanted something new and fresh, and it was a great learning experience. But now we just kind of flip our own homes. and I get pay myself a little extra cut on each project to do that.
It was a very innovative idea, though. Simply staging, right? Taking out the, because if you watch some of these home flipping shows, they spend $3,000 to $5,000 just to stage the property, and you guys were doing it for it was a fraction of the cost. I think $500 to $1,000.
Our model was basically we were focusing on investors. We were going to go in vacant homes. And we were going to just put a few key pieces in, because a big part of selling the home is emotional experience. So we want to make the best first impression, as well as the key rooms in the house look good. So when they first enter the door, we don't just want to be a dark hallway. We would maybe hang something on the wall or put a flower there in the front entrance or whatever you open the door and see first, something there. And then even if it's just as little as a welcome mat, a wreath on the door. So we kept it very simple. And then the kitchen, we'd stage the kitchen, and then we would stage the baths. But we wouldn't be bringing big couches or furniture in there and take up a lot of room.
Costs
and a lot of established stagers have their own ideas about why that helps. But to me, some of the older stagers, it's they look so dated, it almost took away from the house. Someone seeing some of their styles were too much. And we were like, if we just keep it simple, people it looks nice, and they can kind of see wow, this looks really cool. I want this contemporary home. This looks awesome. But we were using IKEA stuff and cheap furniture. And so people were like, oh, I could actually afford this couch. It's not a big, ugly brown cowboy decorated sofa or house. So it was great. It was a great idea. It was fun while we did it.
Very cool. So how do you find these side hustles?
Honestly, wherever there's opportunity and roots of opportunity. It was the first thing in one of my main journals for years. It says roots of opportunity, problems. Could you create a business that would solve a problem for yourself or other people? Change. Any change can stir new business opportunities. Read the newspaper. Look for changing laws, situations, or trends. Newspaper. We don't even have those now. So this is from definitely before the internet was kind of mainstream. So early 2000s. Yeah.
Would you say that the reason you've kind of found so many side hustles is because you're always asking yourself, what is the opportunity here? How can I solve this problem? Are you asking yourself these questions a lot? I
do. And I think I've been doing it for a long time. So it's kind of secondhand, I think, a little more to me. You create your own wealth. If I don't do it, no one's going to do it for me.
Right.
So it's second nature to me. And I think that's something people have to learn, why I focus on the psychology of creating wealth or success in any area. If you want to be a good breaker, you don't just go watch YouTube videos. The best thing is going to be find a mentor, watch videos. You don't just watch a video and try and mimic it. You get a teacher, you get a mentor, you go take classes, you travel, you meet other people that do it. You find a group of friends that are really good or better than you and train with them. And you're just going to naturally get better because they're all pushing you.
Absolutely. I love that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I try to build up the Unleashed Success community on Facebook, is trying to get those people together, why we do the mentorship, and why I myself always have mentors and surround myself with people like you. It's I want people who are going to make me grow and expand in other ways, and have conversations that are like this, intelligent and, thoughtful and deep, where we get into the nitty gritty of kind of success. And it is a big part of mindset. So with all these side hustles, just kind of wrap that up real quick. What would be something that you think somebody could start, right away, or how could they find their own side hustle? Nowadays I feel like it's a lot easier with things like Fiverr, but in Turo, I forgot that, anybody can do that. What's something that's super easy so they can start making money today even?
I think each person has kind of their own unique perspective. And so they're going to have to look at what are their talents or what do they know more about, maybe a niche like I did in breaking, and look for the opportunities or problems or what are guys complaining about there and focus on that. You said Fiverr's fantastic. I like to focus more on products than services because I think it's easier to kind of put a unique product together to bring value to a community. Right now, there's a lot of guys doing drop shipping online. I think the value is coming to more niche markets. So creating bicycleseats.com and then link up with AliExpress through Shopify and sell just bike seats. Because when someone Googles bike seats, your thing's going to pop up. And by drop shipping, there's low barriers. There's no barriers to entry. You got the internet, you got your hustle.
Yeah.
And you just got to build the website, and it's going to cost you basically nothing, because free 30-day trials on some of these things. So you just sign up for Shopify. You got to get your hustle set up in the 24 hours, and you could probably be selling something within 48 hours. So just think of what's niche to you, what you want to sell, what you're looking into. Is it rock climbing? Is it softball? And try and think what you can sell there. And there's a lot of other apps and integrated services like for t-shirts and clothing now. And that's why I don't make clothing, is because I can drop ship the shirts pre-printed or printed on demand. Why have inventory nowadays? It's 2018.
Yeah.
There's no point in my mind to start that, especially for side hustles.
Because that's just added costs. It's added costs you don't need, especially when your side hustle is just supposed to be making a little extra cash on the side.
Yep.
I've always been fascinated about this. I'm just curious for myself too. It's just, how do you stay so focused and motivated on all your goals when you got so much going on in life? I mean, you've got one kid, you've got another one on the way, and you're doing all this amazing things. How do you stay focused?
So I kind of think that's funny, because I actually think of myself as someone who's very not focused. Like, I'm all over the place. But I think the reason it's always working is that and that's part of the reason I have I've tried so many different businesses, is because I get bored of one. But I think through the constant failures, I found what I really do enjoy, real estate. And so just trying a lot of different things, I found the one thing that I always come back to that I enjoy doing. So even if one day I don't enjoy doing it, I always come back to it. But it's not about an overnight success. And I've seen it in my life. It's about sticking to it. And you could say this a lot of ways. I'm not for instance, in real estate, I'm not a seller, I'm a buyer, is one way I've heard it. So I stick with it. If I'm going to start something, I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can. And so, like, if I enjoy it, I have to love doing it. So with real estate, I started it. I don't plan on ever stopping doing real estate until the day I die with Generation BBOY. Even if it's only making a little bit, I'm going to keep doing that forever. And just over the sheer fact of time and decades, even if I'm growing 1% a year, 0.5% a year, over 30, 40 years, it's going to be huge business. And that's going to happen with real estate. I was young and didn't have a lot of resources, even though I was resourceful. So it just naturally grew because I've been doing it so long, rather than have a failure and just be like, oh, this is hard, and stop. I notice a lot of guys, they stop or they don't get into it. And I'm just like, I'm not going to be that person. If I'm going to start something, I'm going to try it till I see some sort of success and then decide if I want to keep doing it. Here's something that's interesting about real estate too, and specifically, is I was 18 when I was going to networking events and weekend courses in real estate investing. And it's changed a little over the years, because now the internet is making real estate and creating wealth popular. But at the time, it would go, most of the guys that were learning and in the course with me were in their 50s and 60s. And I think they had realized, wow, I'm 50, 60, I've worked all my life, and I'm not going to be able to retire. And then I bet in their mind, they're thinking, wow, I had a friend who was 20 and he's a millionaire now and he's doing real estate. And so that's why they're at the course at 55, because they realize they can't retire in 5 years. And I was sitting there 18. I'm like, okay, I think I'm in the right place. That was happening all the way 20s. I was still the youngest guy. 25, I was still the youngest guy. And it wasn't until the last 4 years, and I think that's partially because of big pockets, I started seeing younger guys that it was like weird to me to see someone my age or younger than me at a networking event in the past like 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
I'd be like, that kid actually looks like he's like 20 and I'm like 27. This is weird. Most of the guys are still, 90% of them are in their 50s. And it could be totally wrong, but I tell myself they're here learning because that's generally the end of your career. And they're all new. They haven't invested in real estate. They probably haven't started a business, or some are probably extremely successful lawyers or whatever, but they're still working a job. They're still working 9 to 5 and they can't stop because now their lifestyle is stuck at that income level. And they're like, how do I replace my income?
And the other thing too, I mean, I know it so true, and just trying to create that passive income. But when you're trading your time for money, the minute you stop putting in the time, that's when the money stops. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you want to live any kind of retirement that we all kind of imagine in our head, where you go sit on the beach and have drinks with little umbrellas in it or whatever, for 6 months and do nothing, Like, you're not going to be able to do that when you want to also still have the same lifestyle and drive the same car that you've been driving for the last, 20 years. I think it's very interesting because I look at creating enough wealth to have the passive income I have now. And it's all about kind of creating that snowball effect where you create so much wealth that now you're not spending as much as you're creating every month. Yeah. But that takes time.
Yeah, you build momentum. I've built momentum and it's picked up. I have a lot of friends like, wow, how'd you do so much literally in the past 2 years as it's blown up? I'm like, oh, well, it actually took like 15, 20 years. Now you see the success. And so it's just that typical overnight success story. I'm like, it's been interesting for me. It's been a consciousness shift for me because I never had that kind of wealth. My family never had the kind of wealth I've been creating. And so it's been kind of like weird to have such an abundance of actual just straight money. And like, wow, what do I do with all this? And like, wow, I can just make more money easily. I can multiply it. It's been awesome.
I love how you say, though, it took 15, 20 years to get to this point.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, really, you started, even before you were 18 years old. And so many people are looking for that quick fix. A lot of times when I'm talking about people kind of, to fan the flames and figure out what they're interested in, I recently suggested to a few friends of mine, just to commit to something for at least 3 months, usually 6 months, because you've got to get over those failures. You've got to get past the mistakes to see if this is really something you want. But most people will fail and then they just give up, as opposed to really trying to see if this is something they want. And they kind of bounce around, basically doing jobs they don't even enjoy.
Yeah.
Speaking of just making mistakes and failures, what's one failure that you've had and a lesson you learned from it in the past where, kind of taught you something important?
And me, I'm the type of guy that's like, failure is hard to define because I learned something from it, but it's hard to think back because, again, I started so young. I think a lot of the failure, it wasn't one failure. It was so many failures, walking up and talking to the prettiest girl in the room. And if she didn't like me, I'd be like, okay, where's number 2?
Wow.
And if she didn't talk to me, I'm like, okay, where's number 3? And everyone else knows what I'm doing. And luckily, I'd like to think I wasn't coming off as creepy, but because eventually there'd be a girl that'd be like, I really like you, you're funny, or you're bold, or like, wow, I never thought you'd actually do that. There was a point in high school where we were graduating and we were sitting around like in our group of homeroom or whatever you'd call it. And like one of the guys was like, everyone was telling, what did you notice about each other in the room? That's like, everyone would compliment someone. So everyone go around and room compliment the person in class because you stick with your homeroom for like 2 years or whatever. And one of the guys was like, he was just like, hey, I've never asked you this because it seemed weird, but this is like the last day in class together. Like, why do you always have like the most beautiful girls around you? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, even then I was still like, there's prettier girls and, or there's more fun girls or something. Like, to me at that point, I guess it was just normal because that's who I always went for. I was always, why set the bar low? And, it was just the funniest thing to me. And he was like, yeah, and then like 5 other guys were like, yeah, man, why don't you tell us? I was like, wow, like it really paid off. Like that moment, someone else recognized that all that I was doing. Like I never like taken a step back and like looked at what I'd created over the 4 years from reading all the books and going to the seminars. Cause I was doing Tony Robbins and Landmark and Side seminars, Principia when I was like junior years, like really young for most people. And again, in all those seminars, people were in their 40s and 50s and 60s.
Yeah. It's amazing how these lessons you learn from wanting to go after girls became some of the strongest suits, for business. That relentlessness, that boldness, that willingness to take risks, led to success with, having pretty girls around you in high school, but also too in business. Yeah.
And business is way more fun and rewarding, I should say. There's always that superficial level when you're younger and you're going after what's superficial. You want to look cool because you want the prettiest girl around, or it's physical, right? As you get older, I've realized, like, how can I get back? Because I'm not going to feel fulfilled unless I contribute,
right?
And I grow. And so now that's why I'm doing the Breaking League, and I'm teaching entrepreneurship to high schools, underprivileged high school students through junior achievement, and I'm trying to teach all my friends from the breaking community that don't really have a concept of wealth how do I create that? And to give them, plant that seed in them, like, you can do this too.
Right.
So yeah.
That's awesome. I'm curious too, is just like, what are some mistakes that you see these young people or, new people getting into real estate or entrepreneurship? What do they make, and how do you avoid these mistakes?
When I teach the high school students, at least at that age, they don't hold back. They don't have any sort of constraints. So when I, in the week camp we do every summer, it comes up in June, they create a business in a week. It was originally called My First Startup. And the whole idea was like, it's a step above a lemonade stand, but a step below the daunting task of like raising money and starting a Fortune 500 company. And I think people create this big, ugly thing of like, this is business and it's huge and it's complicated. And so I wanted to make that small step for high school students. And so I tell them, come up with an idea. And a lot of times their ideas are leaning towards that huge thing that I'm like, even someone like me who thinks in abundance and resourcefulness, I'm like, no, there's no way. It's just not going to happen. Like, do you have a military defense contract? Do you work for GE? Do you have the backing? So for younger guys, they usually think too big, too quick. They get their hopes up, they fail, and then they go get a job. For older people, I think it's the opposite. It's like, you have so many resources. You need to open your eyes to what your resources are, your friends, and focus on what you really enjoy, and shift your mind back to dreaming rather than just work and results. And like, think about, what can I create that's feasible? So there's the hardest thing is hitting the nail on the head in terms of feasibility for you and your resources and where you're at in life. And for me, that staging thing was like, I could do this overnight. So it was that thing. I did what my students do in the course. I'm like, I'm going to put this website together in 24 hours. So I started up, did everything, got it uploaded, was posting Facebook ads, already knew about real estate. I knew what real estate investors wanted. They wanted something cheap, but they wanted the value that staging creates. And I reached out to a bunch of investors and it took off. It was feasible for me and my knowledge and my awareness. So if you're a, gym teacher that has no experience in cooking, maybe don't start a restaurant or like a food delivery service. Maybe think of something like teaching youth sports. Like, what's your strengths? A lot of times within your strengths, there's you'll find something in there. One of my best lessons from Lead the Field, Earl Nightingale, was a story called Acres of Diamonds. And so I suggest people go look that up. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. But the whole idea was like, this guy wanted to start searching for diamonds, sold his land, traveled the world trying to find diamonds, couldn't find it, and comes full circle, finds out the guy that bought his land from him found a diamond mine on the property he was living on. Just the idea that like, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but also you there's probably something you have right now that you could create plenty of wealth for you, or at least be your first hustle or full business or place your income.
I love that, man. I think that those are some great lessons there. And just about resourcefulness, I always tell people to dream big. And, like you said, for the kids, when they fail, they give up and get a job.
Yeah.
And that's the exact opposite thing you want to do. You want to keep pushing. You want to keep using your resources that you have, because I'm always amazed that when I actually turn on my own resourcefulness, every time I go, you know what, in my head, I tell myself, that's not possible. Or, you know what? That's not true. Like, how could I find a way? I bet I know someone, or I know someone who knows someone else who might be able to help me out with this or be a mentor. And literally, the more resourceful I get, the better questions I ask myself, the more opportunity comes around. I'm always looking for it. I've always had incredible mentors. And it's funny because people will be like, well, you know what? I don't have that type of person in my life. And I'm like, I didn't have that person in my life either. I went looking for them. And after asking so many people, I finally found the right mentor for me. And, over the years, I've been very fortunate to have great mentors that have helped me grow, not only from a business perspective, a personal perspective, but just the mindset of thinking differently. And I think that's really valuable, which is awesome that you help those kids in high school do that. So this has been a fantastic interview, Stephen. I'm really thankful that you jumped on the call and we made it happen finally, because I know I've been trying to get you on here for a while. We talked a little bit about it early on, I think, is the 80-20 rule, and just how 80% of the results we see often come from 20% of the actions. The key is, what action should we take? We talked about so many different types of actions between side hustle and real estate. And I'm just wondering, what are the top 1 to 2 actions you think we could take today or this week to get involved in creating more entrepreneurship for us, boosting our journey, getting into wealth? What do you think we should do?
I think the biggest influence in our life is our network and the people we hang out with most. Every year, I basically go through my favorites on my phone list. And I look at who are the favorites in my phone list. And right now there's probably 20 people on there. And I try to call them every other week, whoever I put in that list. It's kind of one way I've always held myself accountable. And so I would say do that. Go through your favorites on your phone list, your iPhone, whatever, and maybe add people that you know are killing it right now. Or you're like, man, I want to do whatever that guy's doing. And add them to your phone and just give them a call. And then 2 weeks later, give them another call, follow up, try and create a more deeper relationship and pull that person more into your closer circle of influence. You know, what can you bring to them too? What can I do for them? Ask them, you know, what are your goals? What are you striving for? So the favorites list on your phone.
I
try
love
and
that.
switch up who your contacts are and who you're talking to.
That's huge, especially because, you know, they say like the person you are is the result of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I'm always like, man, who would I spend the most time with? And a lot of times I find that myself, you know, 1 or 2 of those people are usually authors in books or somebody like another podcast host that I'm just listening to. And that's what I'm feeding my mind with. But I've never actually kept a list like that. And I love that the accountability factor though, and building and deepening the relationship. I think that's a great idea. So Stephen, where can we find you online?
Just generationbboy.com. You can shoot me an email. You can kind of check out that culture. I always suggest looking into breaking, and because it's so interesting. It goes a lot deeper than the flashy moves, which I like about that. Any art has its, you know, little nuances. And come to an event if you're in Denver or anywhere. Breaking events are probably the most underrated form of entertainment you could ever do. Like for $3 to admission at some of these events for like 4 or 5 hours of extremely talented, physically, you know, it's incredible. Like what it'll blow your mind. And we use it actually in our company because again, the guys I work with are B-boys, wealthy
Right.
B-boys. We're trying to break that stereotype of starving artist. So yeah, the guys I work with in Top Rock are all B-boys. One of the things we do, if we want to network with someone, we will invite them to a breaking event and they can see us compete as either a team or just separately or whatever. But they're like trying to bring them outside of their comfort zone or outside of the world of like work and real estate and numbers and just pure art and energy and spirit. And it just blows them away. It creates an experience for them. So that's one way we network and kind of bring people into our team that aren't familiar with that.
That's so awesome. I love the duality that you have between business and art and energy and how you've managed to balance it and how it almost feels like, correct me if I'm wrong, but that each one kind of fuels the other. That you've managed to maximize your business because you're so passionate about everything else. And then, you know, you're doing great in breaking because, you know, everything in business, you're working hard on that and you're just able to work hard in both areas.
Yeah. It works both parts of our mind, you know, as a human. So, you know, whatever art you have as an individual, I say focus on that just as much as you're focused on work. And you'll find that art inspires you to work harder. I mean, it's like a daily thing for us. It's normal for me. And sometimes I'm like, wait, you don't like do anything? Like you just work and maybe like the typical video games or TV. And I'm like, that just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, you don't paint, you don't sing, you don't have an instrument, you don't go rock climbing. So some people are like that. And that blows my mind. And I'm like, you should find something to do or you're going to hit 50 and start going to real estate seminars I'm teaching.
Or they burn out. You know, I mean, the other thing too is nowadays with the millennial generation, it's very common for people to work at a job for a year or 2 and change and quit, bounce around, not even in the same business, but they bounce around in different businesses. And it's like, you know, you're going to do that for 5 years. You're not going to have really any hone skill. And, you know, what are you going to be doing? And it's because you're never really happy with what you're doing in the first place. Yeah. So you got to find something that you enjoy or you're going to end up at that real estate conference.
Yeah. Real estate's fantastic. A lot of people get into it. If you don't understand business, I say you go to a real estate seminar because the biggest purchase of most people's lives is the house. So even if you're not an investor, at least take a weekend to go to a little networking seminar. They have them here in Denver all the time. They're like, $10 could save you 6 figures easy. if you just know a little bit about real estate and just the idea of basic real estate investing. And I'm not even talking like this whole psychology side of wealth and money. I'm just talking basic real estate knowledge when you're buying a home, and just learn about, because that purchase, if that's the one house you buy your whole life and you just know a little bit about equity and get a little peek into the eye of a real estate investor, that could save you. That would have, had everyone done that in the US, we wouldn't have had the crash in 2008, because they would have known, wow, maybe I shouldn't be buying an adjustable rate mortgage that shoots up to 18, 20% and over leverage myself and buy 5 houses. Like, that just seems asinine to me nowadays, especially. So
just to finish up with that, one action to get involved in real estate, especially if you have some money saved up. I mean, would you just recommend buying like a owner occupied home and then renting it out, after so many years of living in it? Or like, how does that work? Like, if you've only got so much money, what do you do?
So the number one way people get into real estate, if they're not specifically searching for it like I was, is house hacking. So the idea of buying a fix up for you to live in, because loan terms are favorable, move in the house, fix it up while you live there. So it's not this big cash outlay up front. And your down payment's lower when you buy the house, and then live in it for 1 to 2 years. There's tax advantages to it. And then you sell the house and take that money and buy your next house. And you just slowly flip your way up a little bit at a time. So house hacking, and you can Google that and find that plenty of places.
I think it's like 2 years that you avoid
2 years
capital gains tax up to $500,000.
It's crazy. So
yeah,
the crown jewel, if you can pull it off, that for first time investors, is purchasing a small residential multifamily. This is like the ideal thing to get in would be a 4-unit building. You house hack it, so you buy an FHA loan. It has value add, so you need to renovate all 4 units. You live in 1 unit, fix that up, move one of the renters out of the next building, fix that up, move a higher paying tenant in there, and do that one at a time. Now you have a 4-plex. The other tenants are paying your mortgage, and because you force the appreciation up, you turn around and go refinance the house 2 years later or whatever, or even as little as 6 months later. And you could pull your entire down payment and rehab costs out. So you're in a house living for free. You haven't put any money into it, and your tenants are paying your mortgage, and sometimes more. You're making money living in your home. And if you can get rid of the biggest expense for most people is their mortgage or their living expense or their rent. So if you can not only eliminate that, but make some money, that's what you want to do. But
Sign
that is
man.
Very hard to do. It's hard. It's not easy, but the right people, if you're passionate, you'll find it.
You've got to find the right deal. You get the down payment, and that's going to be obviously more expensive than a single family home. But it sounds like a good goal. Start with a single family and then move into eventually a multifamily. Well,
what's crazy is it is more expensive, but if those other units are already rented out, they count that rental income towards your debt to income ratio on the purchase of the home. So sometimes it's easier to buy the 4-unit than the single family home, because they're saying, oh, as soon as you buy it, you're going to be making $1,500 a month. So we're going to add $1,500 to your
debt to income ratio.
Income. Yep.
Yeah. Wow. That's good to know. Let's go for 20 units.
Exactly. So commercial's different. So it's the 4-unit is the biggest single family you can buy.
Yeah.
Over that, you're in commercial, and then you're talking to banks, and it is different there. They want to see experience.
Right. You've got so much going on, man. It's a true inspiration to me as well.
Yeah. What else can you go to a bank and say, give me money? I'll give you 20% down and you give me 80%, and they'll just do that. And it's because you're leveraging a real asset. You can't do that in a lot of businesses. You can't do that. You can't go, they'll laugh at you if you're like, hey, I'm going to buy stocks. I want to buy $100,000 in stocks. I'll give you 20 grand and you give me 80, it's crazy. And so
yeah,
real estate's just so powerful. It's the only thing you can, to the extent you can leverage other people's money, and
Absolutely.
It's predictable. It's a real asset. It's safe. And what's crazy is multifamily is even better, because you have all the benefits, and then you have economies of scale.
Totally, man. I'm right there with you. That's the goal.
A little flip, it's cool. It's sexy to get a check, but it's like,
sure,
why not buy a 20-unit property that cash flows a little month, but like over 5 years, you sell it and make $400,000 or $500,000.
Yeah. And also too, I just would like to get that consistent check every month type of thing, as opposed to have to find another deal every month.
Cash flow. It's cash flow changed my life. And I'm just going to keep doing real estate. Every time I think of another hustle, like with the hustles, I try to start a new business every January. But this year I was like, real estate's going so good. Maybe I should focus on this. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just focus on doing a couple different types of real estate things, but just focus on real estate. So that's why we're trying to do like Airbnb,
nice
storage units, multifamily, trailer parks. The other thing was my saying is the whole early bird gets the worm. Like there are a lot of successful people. One big one I always think of is like Elvis Presley. And when you hear a lot of personal development nowadays, I've noticed everyone's about waking up at 6 a.m. and do your workout and get your day started right. And I'm like, I've never felt that. And every time I try to start waking up early, it never worked for me. And I'm like, my best time is now. Like it's the same effect. No one's calling me by myself. I can work. I can really focus and get a lot of work done, until about 3 a.m. Yeah. And so my thing was like, no one's saying that is okay. And so I always remember being like, it's kind of weird that I'm up at like the only one up at 3 a.m. and all the other entrepreneurs and real estate investors are like getting up at 6 and 5 and 4. I'm like, that's weird to me. And then I found out like there are a lot of people that they like working late. Elvis Presley was one of them. He loves staying up late and waking up late.
Nice.
And so I'm like, I want to kind of put that out there and let people know, like, if you get the work done, it doesn't matter when you do it.
I 100% agree, man. I'm definitely more of an early person, only because I like to go to the gym when it's not crowded. But like tonight, staying up till 1:32.
Yeah,
it's 2:30 over there.
Yeah.
I mean, I might go to the gym at 7 instead of 5, but sleep a little less. But it's like this conversation got me energized. It got me excited. I'm not even tired right now. And it's like when you're motivated about stuff, I go on rants where like as I'm working on my book, I'm just like, oh man, I'll just be typing for 3 hours. And it's because I'm really focused and excited about it. So I agree. It's when you get the work done. And then on those days I sleep in. So Steven, thanks so much for coming on. Last question is, what is your next level of success?
That's an awesome question. And it's anytime people ask me like, what do I want to do next? I'm like, I'm already doing it. So to continue doing what I'm doing, the next level would be to get into developing some sort of energy efficient home, zero carbon footprint homes, actually made out of hemp and smaller footprint too. People don't need these giant houses. I have a big old house and I'm like, this is so much space. This is silly. I love the house, but I think that if we're going to grow as a world, we need to be more resourceful and probably live on less. So I want to start building large developments of maybe 100 tiny hemp homes with solar power, farm, and just completely running off their self-sufficient tiny homes made out of hemp. They're super energy efficient. It's the coolest thing ever. So I'm really into hemp.
That's an awesome mission. Cool. Well, Steven, thanks so much for coming on Unleash Success.
Thank you.
If you guys enjoyed the show and learned something of value, the one ask that we have is please go subscribe. If you'd like to leave us a 5-star rating and review, that definitely helps us get our message out there. Because each week I'm going to interview amazing people, and I want to be able to give you more and more tools and strategies that get you real results. Feel free to connect with me on Facebook or Instagram at Corey Corpodian, or just visit the website at unleashsuccess.com. Remember, knowing is not enough. Knowledge alone is not power. Action is. Because action is the only way to get the results you want in life and truly live the life of your dreams. So go take some action, subscribe to the podcast, and get ready to unleash success in you.